Edison Motors.
We got some updates here.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about what you've heard, and I'll fill in.
I watch their podcast. I'm a member for them on YouTube. Thank you for turning me on to Edison because it's been like my favorite thing to follow lately. They delivered their first truck. They delivered their very first truck to the customer. It is their undisclosed truck to their undisclosed customer who is extremely secretive for reasons we don't know why. It's also white, and people are speculating because they're going to repaint it anyway to whatever their corporate colors are. They were not willing to say whether or not the truck would even stay in Saskatchewan. They were just saying, we are delivering it to wherever we are delivering it in Saskatchewan. That's part of their video is where they're driving, right? And he said, the company or entity or organization that will take possession of this said truck may or may not be in Saskatchewan. It may or may not be going to a third party to deliver it somewhere else. And the whole point is apparently they've had worry that people are going to camp out on the side of the road and watch for this truck to drive by on a flatbed and then follow them to find out who owns, like apparently there's been that much excitement. And it happens to be that their first customer is extremely secretive and extremely intent on not letting slip what they're doing. And the reason why the customer said they have to be this secretive is because this truck is expected to be such a game changer for their industry that they don't want to let slip that that's the direction the industry is going yet.
They want to
maximize their first mover advantage.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
They want to maximize their first mover advantage. I imagine they're going to keep it a secret as long as possible, but the undisclosed truck does not look anything like this. It is a complete clean sheet design for what they needed. Mm-hmm. And people have speculated all over the place for who it's for.
I think it's for logging.
Could be. Heck, it could be for anything. It's long though.
For those that don't know, Edison Motors creates kind of what we were just talking about.
Oh, sorry. I just got into it. I didn't even explain.
I'm just going to give a quick tidbit. So Edison Motors, Canadian company, kind of a startup, I think definitionally a startup. They're making these diesel electric trucks. That's the way trains work. So you have a big generator that drives an electric drivetrain that moves the train along. This is basically a train for the road.
Train with rubber wheels.
The plus side to that is you get all the benefits of electrification, loads of torque, loads of power, but none of the range anxiety because you have diesel on board to charge the battery up. That's the whole premise. Edison is making these. If everything goes according to plan, these things could cut gasoline costs by up to 70%, which is insane. Insane in an industry where you're operating on sometimes paper-thin margins. That kind of cost savings when fuel, which is a huge cost.
To run one of these trucks across the country is $2,000 just in fuel.
Just to move it, just to move the truck.
Let alone all the expenses of loading and
insurance and paying the driver.
And DOT and
way stations and tolls.
Do you know that because these axles are slightly modified train axles, if they could get the axle, the metal themselves, theoretically, if they could get the metal axles themselves to hold up, there's enough torque on board to spin all of the rear tires with 150,000 pounds on the back.
That's so wild.
It would break the metal components before the tires would spin because of all the friction. But if theoretically they could keep the metal components to hold together, they could do it because they have the power on board.
The amount of power we're talking about, you have to reinforce things you wouldn't have previously thought you had to reinforce.
Yes, and they actually have a huge advantage in this because you don't notice it in a modern car, especially with modern engine mounts, but when you hit the gas in your car, I bet the whole car rocks left and right a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The engine definitely, if you have the hood up, you can see the whole engine kind of...
Right, and as a result, it's actually twisting the body the opposite direction. The chassis twisted off the line. Mm-hmm. You know, the line. Anyway, so a lot of these trucks have to be reinforced specifically for that, but they can take up the place of those reinforcements for other things because it is not being torqued along the length of the truck and then the energy being turned 90 degrees to the wheels, right? That torque is being generated in the same axis as those wheels. So I'm just super excited about how much progress they're making.
The problem they're having right now is they're having an issue getting the generators certified for highway use specifically. Mm-hmm. And so they just went to Parliament. So they visited Parliament.
They've been to Parliament a few times now.
They had someone from Parliament, one of their elected representatives, down at their production and testing facility. That's where they're at. It's cheaper to build their own testing facility than to pay to get their generators tested and certified for road use.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get exceptions.
So the problem is that the generator has to run at 1 RPM. But when you test it for on-road use, it runs at
Through a
multiple
cycle
right.
of RPMs.
So if you're going to use it on the road, it has to be run in cycles. But the generator's not supposed to do that. It's not going to pass because it's not designed for that. So you have to have a whole new testing regime,
Which doesn't exist.
So they thought, and everybody involved thought, and everybody that they talked to previously thought, that if you get it tested at a higher level of requirement for it to be a sitting generator, then they should be able to just put it on the back and drive it. It already passes the Tier 4 final, which is, again, a higher standard than the engine they would otherwise use. So the Canadian government's like, no, you have to use the dirtier engine because for environmental reasons.
They corrected a misconception about that recently. Technically, Canada's Environmental and Climate Commission, or whatever their equivalent of the EPA is, they follow the American guidelines. So it's not necessarily the Canadian government. The Canadian government is doing whatever the United States is doing. There's tens of billions of dollars. Let me make sure I get that number right. Sorry, hundreds of billions of dollars of goods shipped on trucks between the U.S. and Canada every year. Hundreds of billions of dollars every single year. So it makes sense. You want to have your trucks that are crossing the border thousands of times a day. You want to make sure the standards are the same to avoid headaches and disrupting that very delicate supply chain and that revenue. So it makes perfect sense that they want to make sure whatever the U.S. is doing, Canada is doing, and vice versa. So it's not necessarily the Canadian government. It's that the U.S. or Canada, evidently, don't have a testing regime for that type of use case. Because this is new. This has been done on trains. This hasn't been done with trucks.
And you might be wondering, well, if they're running into such a problem, then why is it that Dodge is managing to do it? Well, the answer is that Dodge is using an on-road certified engine, and Dodge has the money to go and get this thing certified at 1 static RPM, or get it to pass. That's an engine designed for a static RPM to pass at a multi-RPM level. So they've just got more resources to bring to bear.
They're using their Pentastar V6. That's in my minivan.
They're using the Pentastar V6 they've used forever. So one, that's basically going to be next to free to them.
Whereas Edison's using a generator that's not ever used for an on-road use case. Because on-road use case, you're revving up and down as your acceleration and your elevation's changing. But for this use case, it's a static RPM, whatever the most efficient thing is. And the battery and the motors are handling the variances in whatever power output.
And when we say this, we're talking about a drivetrain generator. There are generators to run air conditioning for cooled boxes.
Yeah.
For, refrigerated.
We're not talking about an alternator.
Yeah.
We're talking about a generator that operates the entire
truck. There have been generators to cool an entire trailer for cooled products, because you can't ship lettuce across the country and let it just get hot.
Yeah.
So there's those, and those are on-road generators, but an on-road powertrain generator.